Okay. Hi again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Women of Steel, Navigating a Successful Career in Welding, Welding Inspection, and Other Pathways. Thank you for registering for the webinar, and thank you for choosing to spend an hour with us tonight. I'm Maria Hyponen. I'm the Communications Specialist with the CWB Welding Foundation, and I will be running the webinar today. As we go through the webinar, please use the questions tool in the control panel to submit your questions for our panelists or speakers. You can also check out the GoToWebinar support page if you're having any technical issues with respect to audio or video. I'll just take you very briefly through the agenda. First of all, you'll hear from our co-hosts and from the organizations who made today's webinar possible. Then you'll get a rundown on what this webinar is all about. From there, you'll be introduced to the members of our panel and other guest speakers. The panel discussion will really be the main focus of today's webinar, and I know it's going to be very lively and informative, and I personally can't wait to hear from other guest speakers. Then we'll move into a brief overview of an exciting opportunity for webinar inspection training. So I know that there's some of you who are very interested in hearing about that. We have set aside time at the end of the webinar to take questions from the audience. So make sure you stick around to the end, and you'll be able to use the questions tool to ask your questions of the panelists. So we will aim to keep the whole webinar to about an hour. And I think I mentioned before that it is being recorded. So if you have to leave for whatever reason, or you just want to listen again, it'll be made available on our website and also through our social media channels. All right. So first of all, I'm going to introduce today's amazing co-hosts. First of all, we have Cody Vigeant, who is the Technical Outreach Officer for the CWB Welding Foundation. And Cody, give us a little wave through your webcam there. And we also have Lindsay Kearns, who's a coordinator with the BC Centre for Women in the Trades. And Lindsay, you can give a little wave as well. And these two co-hosts are really going to be your MCs for the webinar today. And I'm going to hide myself and get out of the way and let them get things started. So Cody and Lindsay, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves, and I'm turning it all over to you. All right.
All right, thank you very much, Maria. Yeah, thank you everybody for attending the webinar this evening and taking time out of your evening wherever you're from. I just want to introduce to you our Executive Director from the CWB Welding Foundation, Susan Crowley, to say a few words. Susan?
Thanks, Cody. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining this first webinar that we have taken on with our partners within CWB Group, Industry Solutions, as well as Education, and with a great thanks to our external partners, BCC WIT and Fluor. So we're really excited about tonight to explore and talk with all of you about careers for women in the welding trades, and in particular to explore about how to progress your career along your career path, whatever that might be, and whether inspection might be an alternative you're interested in pursuing as well. Just quickly, the CWB Welding Foundation, for those of you who do not know us, we've been around for 6 or 7 years, and we really are, we're created by the CWB group to build awareness of the need for welding and welders in the future, and to help with skills development and skills mismatch that industry is currently and foreseeably for the future will be experiencing. So that encompasses a number of programs for students through to people already in the workforce. And we're just really, really thanks to our partners and all of you for being with us tonight. So enjoy. Cody?
Thanks so much, Susan. That was wonderful. I'm going to be introducing now Kristen Brown. She's the Manager of Community and Public Affairs, Business Development and Sales with Fluor Canada. Kristen.
Hi, thank you. And I think I will reiterate thanks to everyone for their time, for joining us this evening. We know that it is, these are busy days, and that we spend a lot of time looking at the screen. So it's very impressive to us that so many have taken their time to join us this evening. Fluor is a global company, engineering, procurement, and construction. We pride ourselves community where we can. And one of our key focus areas is development of skills in the trades, as reflection of our construction roots. We like to think that we build some of the world's most challenging projects, rewarding careers, and better communities. So we hope that we're doing that this evening. And as part of the panel, we're very pleased to have one of my colleagues who you'll be hearing from. I'm looking forward to hearing from her myself. And just once again, we're so pleased to be here, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Kristen. And now we're going to hear from Nina Hansen, Executive Director with me over at the BC Centre for Women in the Trades. Nina.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we're very excited to be here tonight and partnering with CWB and Floor to get this off the ground. Super exciting. So I'll just tell you a little bit about BC CWIT. As many of you probably know, across Canada, women represent less than 5% of apprentices in underrepresented trades like construction. And in fact, in some trades, it's less than 1%. So women from the trades raised this with the government here in BC back in about 2015, 2016, which led to some government-funded research to try and identify the barriers women were facing to see if we can start addressing this problem. And so what came out of that research was that women were facing many barriers, which many of you, I think, on the webinar tonight know very well. A lot to do with isolation, but also with respect to the culture in the trades being not so welcoming to women. So the government launched some sector labor market partnership grant funding, which we applied for with our industry partners. And that's how the BC Centre for Women in the Trades came about. We launched in 2018 with a goal to begin shifting the culture and removing barriers for women. Ultimately, hopefully leading to the increasing that proportion of women in underrepresented trades. So we are governed by women from the trades. So it's an organization for women in the trades, by women in the trades, and along with our industry and labor partners, of course. And we are really focused on kind of taking it from two different angles. So one with the women, connecting and empowering women in the trades. So trying to break that isolation, get them connected to each other, which Lindsay does all this great work for us right now with networking, peer support, and other educational opportunities. And then also working individually with women who are facing barriers to match them with a trades career, with jobs and employment, or with training. So some of the barriers actually are accessing training to advance in their career. And so that's kind of why we're here tonight, I would say. The other portion that I mentioned is around shifting the culture. And with that, we do some education with our allies. So we work with males and men in the trades through our Be More Than a Bystander program. So we do some training with them with our partner Anti-Violence Association of BC to give them some tools on how to address gender-based bullying, harassment, and violence on site. And then we also do some education for organizations around systemic change, and we call that our Just Workplace or JEDI training, where we provide education to organizations on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in the trades. And so we're super excited for you all to be here tonight talking about advancing a trade. So I think one key thing that I forgot to mention about the research is that what it identified is not so much that women were not trying to get into the trades, but we were having trouble keeping them and actually moving them through their careers. So this is why we're very excited to have you. And thank you so much to CWB for providing this opportunity for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina, and definitely thank you for all your help as well too in helping get this set up. So I just want to take a brief moment here and again extend a thank you to everybody for taking the time out of your day to attend the webinar. And we've kind of touched on this already, but the purpose of this webinar in Welding Inspection Program is designed to help address the issue of attrition that exists with women welders in the industry. And the attrition of women in the industry can be attributed to a number of things, such as bullying, harassment, sexism, and women needing to take time off out of their careers for family reasons. And the desired outcome of this program is really twofold. first is to help empower women who are already in the industry by providing them an opportunity to continue professional development in the hopes that it may move them into leadership positions to affect real pertinent change within the industry. Secondly is to provide an opportunity for women who have left the industry for a variety of reasons, and provides a pathway for re-entering the industry in a potential different setting and role. And again, before we get moving here, for anybody that wants more information at the conclusion of this webinar about the Level 1 Welding Inspection course, the current Level 1 tuition information, so course cost books, exams, etc., are available on the CWB group website. And the current link will be provided in the chat below, but will also be provided at the conclusion of this webinar. So without any further ado, I'm very honored to introduce our esteemed panelists, some of which have been friends of ours for quite a long time and have done some absolutely amazing things in the industry. So very, very excited to introduce first to you from Victoria, who and currently working at Seaspan, and I'm gonna butcher the name of the role, but I think it's Welding Support Supervisor at Seaspan, and that's Rebecca Kennedy.
Hi, thanks, Cody. Appreciate the introduction. You didn't butcher the name at all. You did a fantastic job.
All right.
So my name's Rebecca. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And
My
if
name's
you could
Rebecca.
just
Yeah,
provide us a little bit of a bio and a background, Rebecca.
for sure, Cody. So quick bio for me. I started welding when I was 21, and I stepped out of school, progressed into structural aluminum. From there, I worked for about my first 3 years, almost 4 years. Then I moved into building ambulances, which is fascinating, I find, because they're built out of aluminum, something I didn't know until I started working on them. They house so much material as well as personnel that they need to be really light, especially once you start putting patients in them. They need to move fast. From there, I moved into stainless, working with a lot of stainless steel, brewery equipment, as well as tanks and vessels for drilling companies. And from there, that set me up to move into pressure work. And that was my first union kind of roles that I began to explore. So I worked for the Boilermakers Union and traveled around all throughout BC and to Alberta. Then from there, that lined me up to move into a instructor's role. So I taught at Thompson Rivers University for nearly 5 years, and that also lined me up to start moving into inspection because I had vacation time and professional development time. So I was able to take a breath and study so I could begin getting into inspection, because for me, it was a lot of studying. That was just the next step for me, which then led me back into kind of a life-focused role where I stepped into Seaspan. I needed to make a change and move home to help out my family. So I took a role at Seaspan and was union and then shifted to staff nearly a year ago. It's flying by quickly. So now at Seaspan, I'm proud to say I was given some numbers before this chat, and it's really encouraging for me because there's a lot of women in our yard, and I didn't realize the statistics until I was given them. And our statistics at Seaspan are we have on hand, we have 17% women in our apprentices in the yard. That's between all 3 yards because we're a broad yard. So we have one located in Vancouver that is a dry dock. We also have another facility in Vancouver that is just a shipyard. And then we also have our Victoria location. So between all three, we have 17%. And then in the welding trade alone, somehow we capture a lot because welding is amazing. We have 32% women, so almost double, which was really, really encouraging for me to hear and see. Yes, that's a quick bio of me and where I'm at now. Thanks, Cody.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. That was really wonderful to hear where you've come from and where you're going. Next, I'd like to introduce Janice Miller. Janice, you want to tell us a bit about yourself? And yeah, love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am a journeyman welder by trade, and I actually did a trade before that, marine diesel engineering, and then I got into welding. And from there, with my welding, I did a high pressure welding in oil and gas. So from there, I got into the welding inspection part of it and has been totally focused oil and gas, Alberta, my entire career. Right now, I'm at the LNG project here in Kitimat. I'm the site quality assurance manager here. So I shifted from actually QC roles into the quality assurance role now. Beautiful big project and very interesting, challenging for sure. It's pretty much me.
Awesome. Thanks, Janice. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Nicole LeClair. Nicole is a professor of welding at Sheridan and Mohawk College. So Nicole, if you could share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole LeClair, and I'm a welder fitter and a welding engineering technologist. I have my red seal in the trade as well, and I'm also a level 1 welding inspector, which has certainly helped me in my now career of being a welding professor at 2 Ontario colleges. Love what I do now. Prior to that, I worked for a welding distributor for a long time, covering a lot of territories and helping out clients with their welding needs. So I've been in the industry now for, I guess, about 22 years, including my schooling. Yeah, so I look forward to telling you a bit more as the webinar goes on, but thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this webinar, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, thanks so much. So I guess from here we'll shift into our panel portion of the webinar. So I will start with the first question, and this is for Janice and Nicole. So just a quick question: what motivated you to pursue a career in welding? And then a follow-up that I will ask you was, if welding wasn't your first, was welding your first choice, and why or why not? Looking back, should it have been?
So I guess I'll go first here. My first trade was marine diesel engineering, which with all the shipbuilding, because I'm from Newfoundland originally, and once all the shipbuilding kind of ceased a little bit back east, it was harder to get a land-based job. It meant you had to go offshore. So I was given an opportunity to work at the local shipyard, but in the welding department, kind of like a document control type person. And I found it very intriguing, the welding inspection part of it, not so much the welding side of it. But from being in the trades and coming up working with a lot of men and stuff, I knew that if I'm going to be a welding inspector, for sure, I would have to be a welder to get that respect, is or how I looked at it. So I signed up and did a 9-month pre-employment program. And once I got in there, I actually loved it. So then I just continued on with that. With my end goal was always welding inspection. So I got my journeyman, carried on through, and then did my welding inspectors.
Okay, I guess I will chime in now. Yeah, so for me, what motivated me, I've just always enjoyed working with my hands, fixing things, finding out how things worked. And back when I was in high school, despite having you know, these qualities and liking to do that and taking auto mechanics in high school and woodworking and all that, at the time it was kind of just the expected thing to do, is to go to university. So that's what I did. I didn't choose to follow what I thought was just something that was fun that you would take as a, you know, as an elective in high school. And I wound up dropping out of university. I only lasted a few months because I was taking this Bachelor of Arts and could not imagine what my job would be. So that really made me focus on, well, what am I going to do? And so then I reverted back to those things I mentioned about, you know, working with my hands and fixing things. So that naturally led me to think of the trades. And I took a night class at Algonquin College in Ottawa, where I'm from. I took a night class in oxy-fuel welding, and that was enough to really inspire me to pursue it. And then the more I learned, the more motivated I became to want to learn more and more about it. And that's kind of what led me on my career of taking many welding courses after that. So I guess to answer your question, the bottom line of my motivation was my desire to see immediate results and fix things and work with my hands and get dirty. Oh, and sorry. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I forgot your follow-up question about would it have been, was it my first choice? So obviously, no, it was not my first choice, but it certainly should have been. Hindsight is 20/20, right? If only I could go back and do that all over again, I'd have reached my my goal a little bit sooner, but that's life. anyways, sorry I forgot that part.
No, that's excellent. Thanks for including that part as well. Our next question here is to Rebecca. And so what we'd really love to know, Rebecca, is what is the most interesting project that you have worked on? You're actually muted, Rebecca. Sorry.
Oh my, I have two buttons right now. It's very techy. Thanks, Lindsay. I was just saying I really like this question because I have quite a few that I always try and narrow it down from, but I think I always land on the same one, which is I was working shutdowns and I was with the Boilermakers Union out of Vancouver, and a job that I took was in Port Melon, which is on the Sunshine Coast, so beautiful area to work in. You have an amazing view. The ocean is right nearby. The camp that you can stay in is right on the ocean. People would pay big money to stay there. Camp, maybe not so much, but we were doing a rebuild of a power boiler. And so what that means is a 11 to 12 story building. If you think of the building in that regards of what houses a boiler, we were knocking out the bottom 3 floors. And a boiler is like a massive furnace. So think of like a furnace in your house or something like that. So it's got these big flamethrowers that like heat things up inside the boiler and create steam that then powers things. And that's the premise of what a power boiler does. So we were literally cutting out 3 floors of this boiler house and dropping it. Demolition. I didn't realize that I love demolition. Like I think I would have probably really enjoyed being like an explosive technician or something like that, because we also got to use this piece of equipment that many people, even through their retirement up until, so like think 50 years in the trade, never got to see, which is called an oxygen lance. And you learn about it very briefly in school normally, and it's basically a big flamethrower. So think of like a, I don't know how to describe it, a sparkler, and multiply that by 100. And you light this thing at the end, and it's just a little steel tube, and it's got little steel rods that run through it, and it turns into this massive flame, and it can cut through up to 2 feet thick concrete and steel, and it just washes through it. So we were harnessed up, standing on steel beams, cutting through steel and concrete and everything you could think of, and then just watching it drop. And it was incredible. Fellows were coming out of retirement to see it because they'd never seen it done before. It was just amazing. And then we had to rebuild it. So that was the next part. So all parts of that project was a learning experience, which I really, really enjoy. That's why I got into teaching, but also just something I probably will never experience again in the rest of my career, which is quite fun to be able to talk about.
Awesome. I always personally love hearing those stories because there's just such a breadth of things to do, right? So question 3 is for all our panelists. So Janice, Nicole, and Rebecca, in 1 minute or less, describe what a typical day looks like for you where you currently work.
Okay, I'll go first then. So I'm a welding professor currently, and some days I'm teaching theory. So I'm in the classroom getting to talk all about the more technical aspects of welding, and those days are fun. But I would say the more fun days are spent in the weld shop, where we actually, get to spend time welding in the booths. And so in terms of that type of a day, I'm basically just going from booth to booth, making sure everybody's set up right and operating safely and properly. And I just love being able to pass along my knowledge and all my tips and tricks that helped me become successful and pass that along to the next generation. So I find that very gratifying.
Rebecca, we'll go with you next.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. So for me, my role is very broad. What I do right now, I work with qualifications, training. So I've been working on building some training programs, some new ones for apprentices and journey people in our department, testing. And then I also work with developing procedures. So welding procedures, which is like a recipe for making cookies, except it's a recipe for how we weld. And making sure that we're performing the same welds every time so we don't have a boat fall apart or a ship fall apart. Not ideal if you're in the ship. So that's kind of a day in the life for me, and it can change daily, whether I'm interacting with people, coaching and mentoring them on a weld, normally apprentices at this rate, or providing testing, so providing inspecting for testing as well, or whether I'm at a desk reading my emails and pushing through procedures and documents.
And
Thanks, Cody.
my day usually begins with meetings, management meetings, discuss the day's activities. Then we have team meetings, safety and quality being very important here on this project. I sit with my team and discuss what's going to happen for the day, and then we all kind of fare out into the project. And generally, it's either welding procedures, welding testing going on, and mechanical testing for the procedures itself. Meetings around specification and project requirements, dealing with our welding engineering, all the discipline engineering actually, contractors, subcontractors, and client, making sure that the project is proceeding on as required by specification and code, and dealing with regulatories as well.
That was really informative. Thank you, everyone. So our next question here is one that I'm actually directing to Nicole, and that is, what has helped you succeed in this field?
Well, a myriad of things. Aside from having thick skin and a sense of humor, that always helps. I feel like what's helped me the most to be successful is really all of the formal education that I've had, so that when people challenge me, I know the answers. I worked for a welding distributor for a really, really long time, and trust me, when they see a girl walk in and they're there with the answers, that you get a lot of challenging questions. I don't think they necessarily believe that you know what you're talking about. So having that that education to help me in that regard really earned me a lot of respect. And the next thing you know, then they were calling me for help and suggestions. So my education, my disposition, and having the opportunity to work for a distributor, because I felt like every day was like a day in the show of how it's made, because I got to see so many clients, see how so many different things were made, and I really get a lot of different types of exposure to different types of manufacturing. So I guess you could say a combination of those things.
Awesome, thanks, Nicole. So we've got another question here for Janice and Nicole. So we'll start with Janice. So the question is, tell us about your education. What do you think was most helpful on your career path? So Janice, we'll ask you about your formal education, and when you finish up, Nicole, that question will pertain to you in terms of your continuing education.
Okay, so I graduated high school and I went right into the marine diesel engineering program. When I completed that, I worked at it for a while and ended up getting my 3rd class diesel engineering certification. When I changed up, I then did the 9-month pre-employment program. And once I completed that, I didn't do the apprenticeship or anything like normal people when you go back to school and do that. I actually challenged it all. Self-studied and challenged once I had my time put in. So, and that is it for me.
Okay, I guess I'm up. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I had taken a night class in Ottawa at Algonquin College. I did that night class, which inspired me to drop everything. I moved to Sudbury, went to Cambrian College. I did a welder fitter program. And then from there, I did a 3-year welding engineering technology program. And that was kind of my formal education. But then moving on from there, more specific to your continuing education question, is I pride myself on being, a lifelong learner. You don't like to rest on your laurels, right? There's always something new to learn. And so after that and more years in the industry, I did also do the trade equivalency assessment, challenging the test, and I got my red seal, and pursued and got my level 1 welding inspector. So next up is level 2. I'm going to go for that as well. I also, because I had my welding engineering technology certificate, I was also able to get my international welding technologist certification as well. So yeah, it's like there's always something. And like I said, next up is level 2. So never quit. Thanks.
That is a fantastic message. Our next question here is back to Janice for a second, and I was wondering if you could tell us about your experience as a woman in a male-dominated trade.
So I'm going to date myself here real fast, like 30 plus years ago when I completed marine diesel engineering, I was the first female with 600 plus men. And when I was just a young girl. When I arrived there, and it's I don't know if you're familiar with what marine diesel is that like working on big diesel engines in the ships. So I had to utilize alternate ways to get the strength to do some of the things that I needed to do, which I was always pretty catty at that. But when I arrived there, it was, oh, you know, a girl is here. And there's a lot of older guys there, which I found they were more intrigued that a woman had entered like their world. And I will say, I guess I can say it here, like, you know how they, in the shops and stuff, they had their little corners where they had pictures and stuff like that. And it was like a big little bit of a shocker when I first went in. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to fit in here in this big picture? But I think kind of going to go back to Nicole, when you show you have the intelligence, you have the ability, you have your trade just like they have theirs, and you go in and you work hard, then you get the respect, you do. And I was very lucky. I got mentored by some pretty awesome journey people there in there, and they take you on their wing and they teach you the little tricks and they help. So I was pretty lucky. And when I switched that trade and got to the welding part of it, it was kind of the same. You kind of got to prove yourself a little more, and I'm okay with that because I keep working at stuff and making sure that I get to where I feel comfortable that I'm one of the better people doing it or whatever. You know, you keep trying. And I remember, and we were talking about this earlier here today in the office, how some places, the older guys actually are more accommodating. They'll want to come along and pull your cables for you or push your argon bottles. And when I first did it, was like, no, I'm good. I'll do it myself. And then I got thinking, hang on a second here. Yeah, you can push my gas bottles for sure. You can pull my cables, no problem. But then they soon get, oh, yeah, no, you just pull your own, you're capable. But so from my experience, I think I was pretty lucky. I don't have any horrid stories, no bad things. Yes, we need to work a little harder, I will say that. And we need to be a little smarter, if that makes sense. But for sure, I had good mentors, and I'm very happy I took the trades. Couldn't be more happy.
That's a great message about mentors and the difference that mentors can make. Just a little follow-up question here. If we could pivot to talking to Rebecca for a second. Just wondering about any challenges that you've experienced and how that you overcame them.
Hey, Lindsay, thanks for that. So I have quite a similar story to Janice, I think, in the sense of that I didn't start as long ago as you, Janice, but thankfully I had brothers only. I don't have any sisters, and I grew up around predominantly men or boys at that point in time. I was a tomboy, and so for me, when I actually stepped into welding, it was a rarity for a female to be in it still, and especially on sites, but it was normal to me, if that makes sense. I didn't think anything other than the fact that there's just guys around me like there usually is. All the sports that I was into was male dominated too. So it was actually later in my career where I realized things were changing, especially as I was starting to move into leadership roles. That's where I started experiencing more challenges, because I also had very similar experience to Janice, as I had a fantastic mentor, one in particular when I first started welding, that he taught me to be tough. That was the part where the statement kindness, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I don't know if anybody on this has heard this before, but that's one that I constantly have to remind myself, because I tend to be, and this, hopefully this sounds humble as it's intended, but I tend to be a kind person. Like, I love helping people. That's why I really enjoyed teaching. That's actually where I find my passion is. If you're hurting or having a problem or just experiencing a difficulty, I want to help you overcome it, especially in learning. So my challenge has been to know my boundaries, know my strengths too. So most welders who are really good at that trade tend to be their own worst critics. And that's what makes them so good, is they're detail oriented. They'll find everything wrong with their weld because you never have a perfect weld. So then sometimes it carries over into character. So for me, it was knowing my allies. So those mentors too, knowing who they were, trusting them, knowing my go-to safe people. So I could get that kind of momentary pep talk, but then also know when something's not okay. So I did have some experiences, thankfully, that because I was taught to be tough, I was able to deal with quite quickly, succinctly, and learn to not shy away from conflict. That conflict will be inevitable. And so knowing how to deal with it well and kind of mine it out and draw it out so it can be resolved before it becomes a big deal. So those would be my kind of skill sets, I guess, Lindsay, that I learned through my experiences. But thankfully, it's been a wonderful one too, where I don't think I'd trade it. Yeah.
Wow, some really, really good, helpful information there. Next question is a three-part question again for Janice, Nicole, and Rebecca. So we'll start with Janice this time. Why did you make the decision to become a mentor?
I'm the kind of person, and I think it's just me and probably the way I was raised, that whenever I'm always wanting to share, I always wanted to make everybody be the best that they could be. So share information all the time, pass along, and it just makes. I always say here in the office, I want all of you guys to be smarter than me. That make my job real easy. So we share with each other. The more information you can pass, and the more you can share the knowledge for everybody, it makes everything better. And I guess that's just, I don't know, the way we were raised. I actually taught welding, and I didn't mention that earlier. And I found that to be the absolutely most rewarding job. Absolutely. When you're actually molding that person's life, I'll call it a kid, but they're not kids most times. But when you have that kind of an influence on a person, it really makes you feel good. And so I continue to share and mentor all the time.
Thanks for that. Nicole, we'll move to you.
Okay, well, for me, when I was at my beginning stages and new to the trade, I didn't have really a mentor. I didn't have anyone to go to. Social networking, all this was not in existence back then, and so that probably would have helped had I had some Facebook groups or someone to reach out to. But I didn't really have anyone, so it's kind of because of that that makes me think about, man, I wish I really had someone to talk to, which is why I kind of want to do that for young people today. And there's something to be said for the fact that you can't be what you can't see. So just by being out there and hopefully being a good role model for other young women, hopefully that will inspire them, and then they'll think, hopefully, well, hey, if she can do it, I can do it too. And as part of the reason why I have my own welding bursary. I support welding students at the post-secondary level in Ontario, and I don't just want to help them financially. I want to also mentor them and see them through their career, and hopefully have them reach out to me 10 years from now and tell me what job they have. So it really means a lot to me to mentor and stay in touch with them and help them grow and learn.
I like that one. You can't be what you can't see. That's awesome. Rebecca, we'll close this one off with you.
Yeah, so a bit of a similar vein for me that, like I mentioned, I had a few male mentors, but I didn't actually have anybody that was the same gender as me, which wouldn't have really been a big deal, except for when I was working a lot of camp jobs, that I spent a lot of time often, especially when I was working crazy hours, like 18, 20-hour days, sometimes coming home and wanting to sleep, but I couldn't shut my brain off. And I would want to debrief with someone. I didn't understand the importance of debriefing until I got older. And I'd be explaining to my close friends or family members, spending all the time explaining what was going on when I could have just been able to call someone up and be like, this is what happened, not have to explain anything around it, and they'd get it. So that was kind of the part for me that I've then since, especially instructing, gotten to experience what that can do for someone, and that I get it. I understand what welding is. I understand what the life is like. I understand what traveling is like, shutdowns is like, just so many different roles that it saves so much time to be able to have someone there that can just understand, hear, listen, relate, and hopefully maybe pass off some tips that can save someone the pain and the expended energy to have to figure it out for themselves if they don't have to, right? And it brings me joy. That would be the last one. So it's a bit of a selfish reason, but
I absolutely love that. The mentoring is selfish, and I understand everything you're saying there. It's exactly what I've experienced in my own journey in the trades, and that's really wonderful. So while we still have you here, Rebecca, specifically as it pertains to welding inspection, why is the Level 1 Welding Inspection Program a great opportunity for women?
Yeah, so a really good one. I think any woman that has experienced welding, I can't encourage enough to get into welding inspection. Is I can't count how many times that I was on jobs and someone doing inspection for me hadn't welded before. And that is a common theme in our industry, is that it's really, really hard as a welder, especially if you're a highly skilled one that is your worst critic, to have someone that doesn't know how to weld tell you what you need to fix. It's really hard to stomach. So then gender specific, if that's where we're going, women are very normally tend to be people who have high attention to detail and can see the big picture. So it's a fantastic role to get into, as well as if you've gone through any type of welding training, no matter what it is. It's kind of like the next thing that like knits it all together. All the metallurgy that didn't make sense in school, it just starts tapping into it and gets into the why. So that's where, if you're someone who likes to learn, I don't know, Nicole, you might be able to relate to this, and probably Janice too, especially because you both have taught, and Nicole, you still are. It's really fun when you get to see that kind of big pattern of where it all pieces together and puzzles together. Thanks, Lindsay.
That's excellent. Thanks so much, Rebecca. Our next question here is for Janice. As a welding inspector, how does this job lend itself to work-life balance?
I think for me, I've worked every province across Canada. So that'll tell you the work-life balance right there for me. It depends on what you want to achieve. There's jobs available that you can be at home and go work your 8 hours a day. I'm not sure anymore what a regular day is for people, but it depends on where you want to go with your career. But I mean, if you're going to take the path Rebecca obviously took, and myself to be involved with the oil and gas and stuff, it is long days and it's long shifts for sure. So you have to make or pay special attention, because for sure, and I'm sure you guys will agree, women in this trade, we're dominant and we're go-getters. So we kind of get caught up into this whole thing of our accomplishments in life, and we kind of forget that everything is not all work. And for me, especially this project I'm on right now, it's a very big project and it consumes a lot of our time, that I had to remember on my days off to shut this off. So I'm the extreme of it, but on the other end of it, there is opportunities that if that's where, it depends on what that person is seeking out to do. It certainly gets you away from burning the rod and inhaling all that smoke and into a different role. And I thought both were very rewarding. An inspector one, obviously, a little bit more, because you're now, how do I say, you have say in the matter now, like, and you can welding supervisor as well, not just inspector, because then you'll mentor the welders around you. So it's up to you what your career is, to how you're going to make the balance. But for sure, anybody who's going to go the oil and gas route and the big project route, you have to be mindful, because it is long hours and many days in a row for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Janice. And our last question to close out the panel is another trifecta, I guess we'll call it. And we'll start with Nicole and go Rebecca to Janice. What one piece of advice would you like to give women looking to advance their careers in the welding trade?
Gosh, I don't know if I could narrow it down to just one, but basically just do it. Just try it, because you don't know unless you try, and you're probably going to find out that it's really cool and super fun and you're going to love it. So just do it. So I say, take that course, find the mentor, apply for that bursary, don't give up, and work your butt off.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. Good one, Nicole. Some really good ones. Mine, I think, would be to take risks. So similar theme again, but don't be afraid to try things. With welding, inspection too, you're going to be doing a lot of tests and exams. So just something to know, like getting your nerves ironed out is a process through welding and inspection that you might fail some, and that's okay, because if you're not failing, you're not learning. So don't be afraid to take risks. Hold things loosely too on that note. So like, don't think that your world is crushed and ending if you do fail it, because then you're just going to test again and it's okay. There's some people that they take their level 2, 3 times and on the third time they get it, right? So the biggest thing is hold things loosely, keep going, keep laughing. Don't lose your sense of humor. If you don't have one, find one, because you need it. This life is tough. Laughter can get us through, and stay humble. So the biggest thing too, I love, Janice, you're one that like you want to make everybody around you smarter, I think it was. We can only keep learning, and that attitude will take us so far. Like when I'm 98, if I make it to 98, I want to be learning new things every day still, because for me, that's what makes life fun. So just don't stop learning, and that's all it is. Life is learning. Keep going.
Awesome, thanks for that. 98, that's pretty good. Hopefully you get there. Janice, we'll close this off with you.
I think be strong, stay focused, and don't underestimate your abilities. Never underestimate your abilities.
Wow, short, sweet, and powerful. I like it. Well, you three, thank you so much for making the time to do this, and for all the emails that have been going back and forth in the past few weeks. We were greatly honored to have you guys, or you gals rather, to come on this webinar and share a lot about your experiences, your expertise, and where you're going. So thanks so much. Next off, I've got a pleasure to introduce for his part of the session, Darcy Yantz. Darcy's manager with CWB Education, and Darcy's going to take a few minutes to give us a brief summary of the content of the Level 1 Welding Inspection Program, the applicability of the Level 1 Inspection Certification, and any technical requirements that may be needed for the online component. So Darcy, without further ado, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, some really interesting stories. They were it was great to listening to you guys. I can relate to a lot of that myself, but obviously from the other gender side of things. So our level 1 program, it's an entry level for the inspectors. Obviously it helps if you get some welding experience. You do have to have, there are some prerequisites. Level 1 is basic welding and inspection fundamentals. A lot of it is reiterated from what like a Red Seal training program would be. Some of the topic areas, obviously health and safety. We look at drawings and weld joint preparation, weld symbols, explore different welding processes that you may not have been around. We do some introductory metallurgy with level 1, so you start to learn some of the science behind it. That's basically so you understand material specifications and things. We look at codes and standards that are used in Canada, the US, North America, basically globally. We look at different techniques of visual inspection, some functions of an inspector. A lot of it's documentation. There's a lot of it's as diverse as welding is. Let's put it that way. So you could be out in the field, you could be in a camp job somewhere, you could be stapled to a desk doing all the documentation. Level 1 has a strong component of practical welding inspection, so you learn to measure weld profiles and things. That's according to the CSA standard. When you want to progress, once you're level 1 for a couple of years, you can challenge level 2, and it sounds like some are heading that way. That's where you get into a little more of the material science behind the whole thing. You look at some advanced fundamentals and advanced inspection methods. And then another 4 years after that, then you progress to level 3. That's where you get into a lot of advanced material sciences and advanced metallurgy, and you really focus on QA, QC management systems. Level 1, although it's an entry level, a lot of welders are taking it now. Many employers consider it to be an asset on top of any welder qualifications or certifications you have. A lot of welders are using it to supplement their knowledge, as the previous panel mentioned, but also to boost credentials on resumes. Right now, with the the state of the economy, there's a lot of competition in the job market. So if you're a welder with a level 1 certification, the resume looks, you pad it up a little bit better. So we offer classroom programs. You basically want to pre-study. It's somewhat of a hybrid program. The program's about 70 hours long, but there's like 800 pages of training material to go through. We also offer an online program. For online programs, obviously you need a computer or a tablet, with a suitable web browser, with cookies enabled, pop-up blockers disabled. You need to have a pretty good screen resolution, like a 1,000 pixel screen, because we're going to look at things in a lot of detail. We start looking at phase diagrams with materials and things. So it's not really suited for like a mobile device. You do need some flash players and plugins that you can download for free off like Adobe. Our current online program, candidates get a 90-day access. So it is quite suited for people that still want to work towards it while they're working full time. If your employer's going to spring you for a couple of weeks to sit in a course, I would recommend getting the training material ahead of time and start reviewing it. Definitely for level 2 and 3, if you want to be successful. But if you don't need a red seal endorsement to become an inspector, it helps if you have some welding background though. A lot of it is somewhat repetitive to what somebody that goes through a full welding apprenticeship program would do. So what else can I say about it? Some people struggle with the physical sciences, some of the physical metallurgy, and when we get into a little deeper of the sciences, some of the chemistry that goes on with the materials and things, struggles a little bit. So if you didn't take physics and chemistry in high school, might be a good idea to get a book and do a little reading first, because it's an extension. It's understanding the science behind welding. You're not just depositing sound weld metal anymore. That's what makes it into a lifelong career path. How's that? Any other questions, Cody?
Oh, that's awesome, Darcy. We may get some questions at the conclusion of the webinar in which event. When they pertain to CWB education, I'll be sure to hit you up and pass some of those questions along to you as I receive them. But again, we want to thank you very much for your time and taking time out of your busy instruction schedule to come join us tonight. So thank you.
No problem. This is fun listening.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks again. The next individual I want to introduce is Connie Hodgson. Connie is manager of client services with the CWB group. So I've got Connie to thank personally on many levels, as she has answered many emails and phone calls over the past couple weeks. So Connie's got a set list of, I believe, 6 questions in regards to sort of the administrative and the logistical end of the level 1 welding inspection program. So without any further delay, Connie, floor is yours.
Thank you, Cody. And I just want to copy Darcy's comments from earlier on. Some really great information, really great stories from you ladies, and I feel honored to be in your presence. I guess I'll say that because you've really taken this trade a long way, and yeah, you're doing amazing stuff. So kudos to you guys for sure. So my team, we work on the administration side of the inspection inspector certification. So some of the questions that I just wanted to go through with you is in regards to the application process. So first question is, how far in advance of the course must I submit my application? We would prefer to see those applications coming in about 2 weeks prior to the course starting. That gives us time to review the documentation, making sure everything is there, and that leaves you gives you the time just to focus solely on the course. As Darcy said, there's a lot of information in the course, so we get the application process done and taken care of, and that way you can just focus on the course itself. How long does it take to approve my application? We review all applications that come into our office within 2 business days, so it's quite a quick process. We've got the application set up where you have the opportunity to provide us with all that information, so it doesn't take a lot of time to go through the process. And in most cases, we can get your eligibility letter sent out to you via email or mail, whatever you prefer, within the 5-day period. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time. How much experience do I need? What are the prerequisites for level 1? Well, as Darcy mentioned, there is some welding experience that is required. We do have, if you are taking a level 1 inspection course, we still require that you have a minimum of 6 months of welding experience. So again, that could be a welder, fitter, supervisor, doing some QA, QC. So anything that involves the welding that gives you kind of an edge. And so when you're coming into the course, you have a bit of a background of what welding is all about. The other option is to just challenge the examinations. For those situations, we would be looking for a full year of welding experience that you've had in the past. The next question I have is, where can I write my exams? Wow, we have a lot of options for you in that area. We have all of our CWB offices that we have right across the country. We have CWB off-site exam sittings. These are run by CWB employees, and we usually hold them in the larger centers of each province. So we have Langley, we have Calgary, Saskatoon, we have one in St. John's New Brunswick. We run them in Newfoundland, we have them. So we pretty much have them across country. We also have what we call our remote proctor examination system, where we have partnered with a company by the name of Yardstick, and we use their platform for our online exams. And now we've just partnered again with a company called ProctorU. So that gives individuals the opportunity to complete examinations right in the comfort of their own home. The final one we have is, we call it an examination network, and this is where we work with universities, libraries, and schools, again, right across the country. And if they want to be there to provide assistance, provide invigilation services, we can work with them and send them the examinations, and they in turn would be the live proctors for individuals to complete their exams. Do I have to write all my exams at once? Not anymore. That used to be a requirement, but we have waived that just recently. And the reason for that is because of this unfortunate pandemic that we're dealing with right now. Everyone has had to decrease gathering sizes, even in our offices, in our off-site sittings. So we know it's a bit tougher now for an individual to come in and complete all examinations at what time. So you're going to be writing 3 or 4 exams for the complete process. So what we've done is we've allowed individuals to make it, their choice if they want to start doing some code exams earlier on once your application is approved. The only drawback with the practical exam, which is our 3D printed samples, is that those examinations have to be done in the presence of a CWB employee. So they have to be done at one of our offices, or they have to be completed at one of the offsite CWB offsite exam centers. But again, we kind of give you that opportunity to maybe get some out of the way earlier on, and then come into the office and complete the practical. If I fail, when can I rewrite? We don't have a time limit or a set number of days that you have to wait before you can come in and rewrite. We do encourage you to maybe do some restudy or study. I know individuals want to get everything completed as quickly as possible, and sometimes out of frustration, they want to retry, and it's more frustrating for them. So we say, go home, review the material, and then come back and give it another shot. But I think one of the panelists had mentioned, don't let that set you back. They are difficult exams in some cases, once you get, like Darcy said, into the metallurgy and stuff like that. So, don't beat yourself up, and just review the material again and come back. The time limit that comes in is that when you get your application approved, from that approved date, you have 1 year in which to start your examinations. When you come in and make that first attempt, then you have another year or 1 year from that initial attempt date to complete it. So we do give you time to get prepared and come in and write, but that the time limit does come into effect once you start your exams. Then you have to successfully complete everything within a 1 year period from that time. And that is all my questions that I have, Cody. So I will turn it back over to you.
Awesome, thanks, Connie. And like I said to Darcy as well, if we do get any questions from the audience, feel free to send us the questions that you may have, and we'll make sure to ship them off to Connie and get some answers for you. So thanks again. Now I'm going to turn this over to Maria. As I understand, we do have a few questions for the panelists from the audience. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Cody. Thank you so much to the panel so far, and thank you also to Darcy and to Connie for their segments. I've just been listening in and enjoying everything. So we had a couple of questions come in. The first one is actually to all or any of the panelists. What is the largest obstacle you had to overcome as a woman in the welding industry? Let's start with Janice on that one.
I was thinking, I'm really thinking about that one, and I don't really have one, to be honest with you. I really don't have one. I think the key thing is just work hard and stay focused, you know. And once you show you're capable of doing it, then you get the respect from people around you. So I really haven't had, I don't know if my life was easy or what, but no, I haven't had any obstacles.
Okay, thanks, Janice. What about you, Rebecca?
Ooh, probably failure. So nothing too like atmospheric based, but I really struggled with being okay with failure. And like I mentioned already, if you're going to be someone highly skilled in welding, often you're probably going to be doing a lot of tests throughout your career. And so I had to learn how to get back up again. It was normally more challenging tests that were tough for me. So some of the really refined tests for certain job tests, for example, that sometimes were really difficult to pass because nobody had ever done them before. They were predicaments that they needed to figure out how to get a job done when they couldn't access a side, for example. And so really starting to accept failure as a part to help others grow too, not just myself. So restructuring that idea of failure.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. What about you, Nicole?
Well, similar. I think Janice sort of touched on it before as well, is just the feeling, for me anyway, that being out there in the industry, I feel like, you know, you have to, as a woman, work twice as hard for the same level of respect. And so for me, I guess that was the most challenging, and just, you know, over time, it just took time to basically, I had to earn their respect. And so many times I'd get asked questions and be challenged. And then I think to myself, would I have been asked that question if I was a guy? And I probably wouldn't have been. So that was the most challenging for me, I would say.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I got there finally.
And we had another question. This person says, I'm taking the CWB Level 1 training soon. Do you have any advice for me? Can anybody chime in on that one?
Get the books and study early if you can.
Yeah.
It's from Darcy.
If you're doing it with a group of people, my answer would be work with them. Like if you're in a group mix, then ask each other questions, like learn off of each other, recognize like you're a cohort and you're a team in that then. Or if you don't have that, reach out, find someone who has gone through it before you and get their support too. Get mentoring going if you don't have it.
You do have the advantage of doing extra research for material you might not understand when you're doing your own study. We've got this World Wide Web now with a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's a little too much information. You have to sift through to find the correct stuff. But yeah, Rebecca's right. If you can get a mentor to help you out, group study helps. Get a study partner because that's how you do some of this advanced technical type learning. It's not a gimme. You need to work at it. That's why I say get the books early and start studying.
All right, that's good advice.
Okay.
Okay, I had one more question here. I do notice that we've just gone about 5 minutes over time, so I think we'll just have the time for this one last question. I'll just read it out, and whoever thinks they can answer it, just jump right in there. What are the requirements, if any, for on-the-job training or experience within the first year while you're working towards your inspection certification and after you receive your level 1 inspection?
I think that one would come back to mentorship probably. And I'll give like a really quick answer of that for your level 2, to be able to get your level 2, you have to work under a level 2 for 2 years.
Yeah.
So pick wisely.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know, the level, I'm just going to kick in here for a quick bit. The level 1 program is an entry level. It's not a gimme, it's a lot of information, but you are going to learn most of the stuff once your feet are on the ground and you're actually working. It's linking all the theory material to a practical situation. That's where it comes in, and you find a lot of satisfaction with it too. So you are going to learn a lot more out in the field than you're going to out of a book.
And I want to jump in here quickly just to add to that, just from my own past experience. If you do have your level 1 and you're entering, do not choose shutdown environment. Try and choose new construction to come in and get introduced to different aspects of it before you show up to a shutdown situation.
Yep, exactly. Try to diversify your experience as much as you can. You know, like right now, Enbridge Line 3, that's a 2-year camp job, but with COVID, you can't leave camp. So that's going to be like almost being in prison for 2 years. You can make a ton of money doing it, but you're only going to be exposed to one aspect of the industry. So I agree with Janice. Yeah, do a bunch of little jobs, diversify your experience. It sounds like that's what Rebecca was doing. She's worked for Boilermakers and shipyards and a bunch of other things. Teaching, you actually learn a lot by teaching also. I can reiterate that from what Nicole and Janice said too. So I'll shut up now.
We did actually have a couple of other questions came in. If you guys are okay with just 2 more questions, I'm not sure who can answer them. The first question is, what is the demand for level 1 for finding a job? Anybody chime in on that one?
Right now, it will be difficult because it's just the state of the economy out west, especially in the oil and gas industry. It's very quiet out here in Alberta these days, so everybody's looking for level 2. But eventually, you got to start somewhere, right? You're not going to get the money that you could 15 years ago as a level 1, but you still need to get that experience. So. Right now, our level 1 courses are full, but a lot of welders are taking them for the reason I said before, to kind of pad up their resume and to expand their knowledge base.
Okay, Janice, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. And exactly what he was saying, kind of the level 2 is the big request now. But that being said, don't be discouraged. There's still lots of places you can tap into to get the experience you need to achieve your level 2. And maybe these places will be better anyways, because I know I was here for the whole rush, and being the QC manager and having lots of QC people underneath me, I felt the brunt of what I was saying. Do not do a shutdown when you're a level 1 brand new. So this is probably better in a different kind of way. So yeah, you probably have to take less money, but the experience you're going to get from that, and you'll get different experiences. And when you actually get into the job where you are going to line your pockets a little bit, you will bring something more to the table. So there is options though. There is a availability out there.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to give this one last question, and then I'll have to close it off for the evening. Was it difficult to find an employer or mentor to give hours towards level 1 and 2?
Not for me. I'll jump in here. No, but I came through the boom. I will say that it was, you could, as long as you had that level 1, you could say, okay, I want this much and I'm going to go this many hours, and it was, and it does cycles, so don't be discouraged. We're in a down cycle, it'll cycle back. It always does. That's just the world. But yeah, I
What
didn't
I
have
would,
any trouble.
yeah, what I would recommend too, right now with the state of the economy, choose like a CSA 47.1 or 47.2 endorsement, because the level 1 exams can be used towards a welding supervisor qualification that falls under the company's certification umbrella. So that it kind of opens up a few more doors too. Rather than being like an independent inspector, you work as a supervisor, okay, with the same exams. So you kind of get double the money's
And
worth from the exams. So
to tap in another option too, just quickly, when you mentioned the CW certified companies, there are companies that's still looking for that certification, and that's how I end up my CW supervisors actually, because they hired me to build their quality program, and they sent their foreman to do the exam. He failed, I passed, I got so yeah, there's other options to that. You pick a place like that and you get lots of experience that way too. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have gone over time, so unfortunately, that's all the time we have to answer questions. If anybody does have any questions that you still want to submit to us, please feel free to go ahead and send them to us by email, and I'll make sure to send it off to the panelists, and then the panelists can provide their answers, and I'd be happy to email that question back to you. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists, to Rebecca, to Janice, and Nicole, for spending your evening with us, and for telling us so much about your experience, and telling us your stories. I've really enjoyed learning about what you've experienced as you've gone through your careers, and I'm sure the audience has taken a lot away from that as well. I'd also like to thank Darcy and Connie for sharing details about the welding inspection training course itself. That was very informative. Thank you very much. There is information about the course on the CWB Group website. You can get more details about that there, or you can send us an email. Thank you also, of course, to Cody and Lindsay, our fantastic co-hosts for tonight. You guys did a great job moving us along. There was a lot of information that we packed into this webinar, so just to remind you that the recording will be available, just in case you want to go over any other information. Finally, thank you to Floor Canada and to BCC WIT for helping to make this webinar possible, and for everything that you do to support women who want to advance in their careers in welding and the skilled trades. So that was it for tonight. For the audience members, please keep your eyes open for your email, in your email for the survey to be coming after the webinar. We just want to get your thoughts on what you thought about the webinar, if you had any other questions that you had for us, and also to find out your interest in learning more about this course that we were talking about today. So keep an eye on our social media channels as well. We have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We'll be sharing information about the recording there and also on our website. And please also check out our Women of Steel network on social media. It's just hashtag Women of Steel. You can connect with all of our panelists here today and so many other women who are in welding who can share their stories and just help to build those connections. So thank you again to everyone tonight. Have a good evening, and we hope to hear from you again sometime in the future. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Maria.